Hi, everyone. We are back with another week of AJ's weekly baseball talk show. And let me give you guys the rundown today. So, we got a couple people who are going to call in. I know with a couple of my friends, it's going to be Matthias Altman Karazaki, who's a weekly caller, and my good friend Connor Hamilton, who I used to play baseball with the Syag Braves, which is a team based in Long Island. And, we finally have our first fall break here at Allegheny, which is why there's not too many people on air. And because of that, I just wanted to do a bit of an easier, more relaxed podcast today. So I will just be announcing the Cardinals Nationals game. And that's kind of why that I tuned in a little bit late, is because a little bit of technical difficulties, just getting the game streamed. That way I can broadcast it. And for those of you who do not know, I am AJC, otherwise known as Adam Cohen. And you can find me at Yankees from Israel on Instagram, Yankees from Israel on YouTube. You can find me at my regular Instagram, aidcohen1903. You can email me questions and concerns at adam.cohen71422@gmail.com. And yeah, I'm trying to become a professional baseball broadcaster, which is why I took up this radio show slot. And yeah, just, trying to, do as much practice as I can. If for some reason the game does not work, then we'll probably just talk about some different baseball songs. It's going to be more relaxed podcast this week. So we shall see what happens with that. And I hope it works. It's like very close to it, but I don't think the Wi-Fi is as good in here today. Maybe because of break. That could be one of the possible reasons, but you never know. So it happens. And so the Nationals are playing the Cardinals, and this is the first time the Nationals or their entire franchise has been to the National League Championship Series since 1981, when they were the Montreal Expos. And once again, the stream's being a bit annoying, so we'll see how far we can go with it. If not, I'm just going to play a bunch of baseball songs, and we'll see how to take it from there. Worst comes to worst. But yeah, more on the Nationals. So they've actually, before they beat the Dodgers a couple of days ago, they had never won truly a series in their entire history. I mean, yes, they won the National League wild card game against the Brewers, but it's a one-game series. Let's define a series as at least a best of five in a baseball sense. So that being said, it's not when they won the wild card game, it wasn't really a series. So when they beat the Dodgers, that was the first time they officially won a series. Yesterday got off to a great start. Their pitcher, Anibal Sanchez, went 7 2/3 innings pitched. I believe it gave a hit or two. Edson didn't give up an earned run. The Nationals won 2-0, and he only had a no-hitter for a very long time. So they did really well last night, and have taken a commanding 1-0 lead in the series. It's a best-of-7 format, so obviously still a lot of time for the Cardinals to catch up, including a chance today at their home stadium in Busch Stadium. Once again, just the stream has been really iffy right now, so we'll see how far this goes. Yeah, it's just being obnoxious. I'm like trying to broadcast and at the same time get the stream going, so I do apologize about that. Yeah, I'm going to try to change the Wi-Fi server. So there's a couple of different options, and possibly that'll work out. So you always got to have a backup plan for when stuff doesn't work out. And I have a wide variety of baseball songs, actually, because when I was in Israel, in between innings, I'd play a bunch of these baseball songs. So, yeah, that's kind of what I did. And, I kind of learned a good. We got a call right now, so we will answer that.
We have a caller.
Hi, how's it going?
Hi. We have a question from Fireside.
Yes. Sorry, say that again?
Why is the baseball not traveling in the postseason like it was in the regular season? No one's hitting home runs. And the Cardinals are now saying that the ball is traveling 4 feet less than what it did during the regular season. That Major League Baseball changed to get the ball.
Well, I think the
It's a
card.
conspiracy. It's a conspiracy to keep the Yankees from winning.
I mean, there's a couple of points there. I mean, with like the Yankees Twins series, the ball was flying a pretty decent amount. The Cardinals series, you don't have as much pop. I mean, they have guys like Paul Goldschmidt and Paul DeJong, and that's kind of their the end of their power hitters right there.
But look at the Twins. Look at the Twins and the Yankees, and look in that series how few home runs were hit. Really, the
I mean,
Twins hit one home run in 3 games.
I thought they had a couple more, but I remember at Yankee Stadium there was a couple of home runs,
It's
like the
one.
first. I remember.
No, they hit three. I'm sorry, they hit three in 3 games, an average of one a game.
Yeah, I mean,
Everybody's saying the ball is not traveling.
like the home run. It's not always a guess about like how many home runs is hit. I mean, if you look at the regular season, like yes, it was there was almost every team kind of had a career high, but with the Twins in the series, a couple of the home runs that they were hit, at least in Game One, it didn't go very far, and it kind of shows you like okay, if that ball adds an extra 5 feet or so, or kind of like allows more home runs to happen, those kind of like home runs that are usually flyouts. The usual flyouts can turn to home runs, which is kind of what Jorge Polanco had. That's kind of what Mitch Garver had, at least in that game.
Cardinals are crying a conspiracy. ESPN just reported the Cardinals are saying the baseball is different. The balls are not the same as the regular season, and Major League Baseball is doing something. I believe it. I believe it's a conspiracy for the Yankees not to win. They don't want Judge, Encarnacion, Torres hitting home runs. They don't. What do you think of that? I'm a Yankees fan, so I'm in the conspiracy mode now.
I don't know. I wouldn't really say it's a conspiracy against the Yankees. I think maybe I think I could definitely see them changing the ball for the postseason. I mean, they're
But
obviously.
you can't do that. You cannot do that. You cannot have the team playing all year long and then deny that you did anything to the ball all year where it's just totally evident that the ball has an engine on it. Okay, when 5 foot guy hit 400-foot home run, everybody. What's the kid's name? Solar from Kansas City. Never hit more than like 14, 15 home runs. Led the American League in home runs. And then you're going to change. You're going to change the ball in the playoffs. That's you do change the ball next year. Go with what you went through the whole year. It seems just crazy to me. Baseball's getting on my nerves now.
Yeah, no, I definitely hear what you're saying. They should just keep the ball how it was the entire year, which has been a lot of home runs. You're right. Like Soler, I think at most he had 30 home runs, and this year he led the American League with like 48 or so.
He had 48 home runs or 47 home runs this year. This guy's as skinny as me. He's never been that type of player. All of a sudden, everybody's hitting these home runs all over the place. And then you're going to change the ball. Play the game the way you played it all year.
Don't change in the
Don't
playoffs.
change it when it comes to the playoffs because the pitchers were pitching the way they were pitching based on the way the game was being played all year. Now the pitchers are like, they got to change up. They got to do it. The people think it's going to help the pitching. It could hurt the pitching too because they're still pitching a little bit defensively the way they was. So everybody's all confused. The Cardinals just came out and said, this is crazy. I got an ESPN alert on my phone.
We have a diehard Yankee fan here.
This is BS. And I'm telling you, this is a conspiracy.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree with you. I definitely agree that it could be a conspiracy that they changed the ball for the postseason. They have changed the ball in recent years for the regular season. I don't think it's entirely against the Yankees, but I definitely see that. I can definitely see that they changed the ball a bit.
Yes, because now you got the national audiences all over the place, all over the world, and they don't want They don't want it to seem like it's a ping pong game. Well, you know what? You played the game one way all year. Now play the game and the players the way you played it all year. Change it next year. Now you're screwing everybody up.
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, I think the larger problem at hand, though, is why they would change the ball a couple years ago in the first place. I mean, baseball, at least in the past 20 years ago, has just had intoxication of home runs from the steroid area to changing the baseballs.
Yes. And now they want it. Now they made it. Everybody strikes out 200 times and it's 40 home runs. There's no hit and run. There's nothing. There's absolutely nothing. Great God to get 28 home runs. Please. I'm talking with her son on the phone.
You have a question for him? He's a baseball guy. We have a bunch of people here.
Well, anyway, when you become the broadcaster for the Yankees, you get us some tickets, okay?
Yeah, you got it. You got it.
Thanks.
Yep, thank you.
Bye.
Bye, have a good one. Yeah, that was my mom and some of her friends from work. So basically what they're saying is that in the last couple of years, a lot of pitchers have been complaining more and more that the baseball is juice. And, most people might be thinking like, oh, that's crazy. Would MLB actually do that? Yes, they would actually do that. Because during the steroid era, there is hard evidence that suggests that they knew what was going on, the players juicing, and they just had a strike in 94 to 95. So 3 years later, when it was the Sosa McGuire battle, and there were so many home runs, baseball needed it. They needed a time that wasn't full of conspiracy. They needed a time that, got the fans back riled up and wanted people to watch baseball. And honestly, in recent years, baseball's fan base has been dying a little bit. And they are, you see it everywhere. They're trying to attract youth a lot more. The commissioner of baseball, even though the best player in baseball doesn't show off that much, to show off to help out the fan base to promote baseball, which is really messed up. And they are making a lot of commercials as well to kind of show that, oh, baseball is young, baseball's dynamic, try to be something near like basketball or football, kind of like those like young dynamic players who show a lot of emotion. And there's guys who do that in baseball. There's also guys who just, play the game and don't showboat. But the number one problem is that, or the number one way they're trying to fix that is they changed the fabric of the baseball, like the physical composition of the baseball. And you never hear it from hitters. You would never hear it from hitters, but from pitchers who throw the ball a lot of times, of course, more than the normal fielders, more than a normal position player. They're all saying it's wrong. They're all saying it feels different. The seams are kind of more ingrained to baseball. You have less of a feel for them. It's just one of the reasons why Tanaka blamed his splitter for not working as well. And mind you, Tanaka's a perfectionist. Like, he takes 100% of the responsibility for not pitching as well this year. But they actually did measure the baseball. Like, some physicists actually measured the baseball, and they looked at it and they said this composition is different than how it normally was. Then you hear a report a couple of years back about them trying to change the fabric of the baseball, by freezing them at a certain temperature and keeping them in storage somewhere. And it definitely had an effect. It's, of course, all speculative, but which is a word actually my stepmom uses a ton when she can. That's what she calls Spectrum, which is hilarious. The TV network, or kind of like the TV streaming network. But anyway, going back to what I was talking about, is that, of course, it hasn't proven. Obviously, baseball won't admit it because that'll be a huge conspiracy, but we all know something's happening. And what the caller was saying is that during the playoffs, the baseball isn't, they changed the composition of baseball for the playoffs, because it's postseason ball, because they want the postseason to have more of small ball, more stolen bases, more sac flies, more balls hit the other way. That could be true. I mean, I haven't looked at the report by ESPN yet, but the Cardinals saying that the ball is traveling 5 feet less than it normally does during the regular season. It's funny how they even got a number like that just within, 4 games of playing so far in the postseason. So, who knows? But I wouldn't put it past MLB to change the baseball again for the postseason to have even better baseball. So that's kind of what the last caller was talking about. But I wholeheartedly disagree that it's just a whole conspiracy against the Yankees. Not any evidence about that at all. And he was mentioning that the Twins did hit a lot of home runs this year. The Yankees actually hit a good amount of home runs. And they used a lot of their relievers who are very high-powered who don't give up a lot of home runs. At the same time, when the Twins did hit home runs, a couple of the home runs in Game 1, such as from Mitch Garver and from Jorge Polanco, just made it out of the ballpark. So, once again, that could be an instance of the ball being juiced and not really conspiracy against the Yankees. So I do not believe that. But I do understand where the caller was saying that ball could have been changed for the postseason in general because of the report that came out about the Cardinals. Anyway, let's see if the stream is working now. So far, it hasn't. If not, we'll just be playing music and answering some calls. But I do hope it works. I mean, I would love to, broadcast the game. It's the playoffs. And, yeah, I mean, it's always fun to broadcast the playoffs. And I think, all right, we did get something. Great. So we did miss the top of the first inning. Excuse me for 1 second. So the Nationals did not score. Right now, the leadoff hitter, Dexter Fowler, is head in the count 2-1. And the Cardinals, interesting fact that just showed up on the network, their leadoff hitter has not reached base in the last 15 innings, which is pretty absurd. That curveball dumps in for a strike 2-2. And it's interesting because Fowler, who actually had a bit of a renaissance for the season, obviously not where he was with the Rockies and even the Astros a bit, or even he wasn't the Cubs, but the Astros and Rockies, he wasn't really like that as he fouls off that fastball right down the dish, 2-2 still. But he actually had a bit better season. I think his transition to right field kind of helped out the Cardinals as well because he's no longer a good fielding center fielder. I mean, he's in his 30s, which is when your fielding usually declines. So it makes sense, that the shift to right field could have helped him and that he really worked on his hitting too. But in the playoffs, as that fastball misses slow full count, he's been hitting the ball very hard. But hasn't had too much success with it. And that's one of the reasons why probably the Cardinals have not had a leadoff hitter reach in the last 15 innings. I think Fowler is their de facto leadoff hitter. He was their leadoff hitter yesterday, and I think maybe a couple times in the National League Division Series against the Braves. And that slider has him tied up, and Scherzer has his first strikeout, one away. And so for those of you who don't know about Matt Scherzer is one of the best pitchers in the last 10 years. He has won 3 Cy Young Awards, one of the Cardinals in 2013. He has won the Nationals in 2017, and I believe another one with them a couple years earlier. I would say, I think 2015. That sounds right. Yeah. No. I think they went back to back. It was like in like a 5-year span from like 2013. Sorry, 6-year span from 2013 to 2018. Won 3 Cy Young Awards, and he probably could have won a Cy Young Award this year. But Jacob deGrom had a great season, and Scherzer got a bit banged up. And Hyun-Jin Ryu also placed very high in the National League Cy Young this year. The Cy Young, for those of you who don't know, is the best pitcher award for each league. So when you have, winning one of them is very impressive. Winning 3 of them is very impressive. Puts them in a very exclusive club. And here comes the 2-0 to Colton Wong. Fastball up and away, 3-0. So Colton Wong, I didn't read the article, but I saw an article about Colton Wong being one of the better second basemen in the game. And there's no doubt about it that his defense is really, really good. He might be the best fielding second baseman, but they said that he was better than Gleyber Torres as he takes ball 4 for a walk. So Wong walks on 4 pitches, and as the first base runner for the Cardinals tonight. And yesterday, they did not have too many base runners. I think they just had maybe 4 or so around that mark. Yes, Anibal Sanchez had a no-hitter for 7 2/3 innings pitch, which was pretty incredible. So good for him. And more on Colton Wong. This article said that he was better than Gleyber Torres. Now, mind you, Gleyber Torres is obviously a better offensive contributor than Wong. If you just look purely with the bat, I'm not talking about base running. I think we can all agree on that Torres is the better offensive player just with the bat. Now, when you include speed, when you include defense, they actually had Colton Wong as a better player for most of the season, which is pretty interesting because Gleyber Torres had 38 home runs. I think Colton Wong didn't even have 20, and Gleyber Torres still batted like 280 plus, and Gleyber Torres almost drove in 100 runs, and he's about average on defense. So, he's not a bad player. I was just surprised to hear that someone like Colton Wong, who, he does have a bit of above average bat. He has a 106 WRC plus, which is weighted runs created, which is an offensive stat. And when you're 100, you're league average. When you're above 100, you're above league average. So having a WRC plus 106 means he's 6% above league average. And Gleyber Torres, I believe, is at least 25% above league average. So there's we can all agree on who's the better pure hitter. But like I said, when you include base running and fielding and going from first to third and all that stuff and all that other just non-pure hitting metrics, here's Wong going to move, and Suzuki fires down and not in time. Suzuki kind of threw that a bit in front of the bag, and second baseman, who's the second baseman? Howie Kendra had to come in front of the bag, and Wong slid in safely. So, hey, the Cardinals are getting things going here against a very good pitcher in Scherzer. And yeah, Wong has very good speed. Better throw actually probably could have got him because the ball beat Wong. It was just a couple of feet in front. And Suzuki puts his hand on his hat, and he can't believe it because I think if Kendrick maybe could have let the ball come to him, he could have had a better shot instead of trying to run up to the ball and catch it. So kind of a not great defensive play by both ends as the ball did beat Wong. But hey, this is what I was talking about when aspects of baseball are being dissolved and missing a bit, and how it's being saturated with the home run. When you put players in motion like Colton Wong, good things happen. Suzuki's not a bad catcher, but Wong got a good jump, and he didn't make a great throw. And now Wong is in scoring position with one out with one of the best hitters, actually the best hitter with the Cardinals, and one of the better hitters in the league, in Paul Goldschmidt. Now, Goldschmidt's WRC plus during the regular season was, I believe, 117. So that's pretty good. But the Cardinals didn't have anyone 120 plus, which is, I think, something that almost every team has. And Goldschmidt swings and misses at the slider. So both outs recorded in this inning by Scherzer happened via the strikeout, 2 away. And, Goldschmidt obviously had a good season. He batted, like 270 or so, 34 home runs, 97 RBIs. But that's not as impressive as it used to be. Still very good numbers, but it's not as impressive as it used to be. And Goldschmidt, who's actually a pretty good base runner, he stole a lot less this year. This is a guy who, I actually checked the stats earlier, he has 243 home runs and 127 stolen bases as a first baseman, which is very, very good. Not a lot of first basemen can boast about that. And he's kind of been described like a Jeff Bagwell type player, someone who can hit really well and run really well as a first baseman. He's also not a bad defender. So, Goldschmidt obviously a good player, but this is a guy who was third at MVP for a couple of years and had 7 WARs. Now he's like a 4 WAR player. So, the Cardinals, when they signed for 5 years, $22 million, maybe he'll live up to the contract. He's lived up to it this year, but they may not get the production that he was a couple of years back at the Diamondbacks. Even last year, Goldschmidt has been, stealing a bit less and not hitting as well. Not really the guy that he was from 2013 to 2016, where he was like a top 5 MVP almost every year. And here's Marcell Ozuna. There's a 1-1 count against him, trying to drive in the game's first run. and fouls the ball off, now 1-2. So Ozuna originally started his career for the Miami Marlins. He was part of this insane outfield with the Marlins. They had Stanton in right, Yelich in center, and Ozuna in left. And all of them have been all-stars, and all of them had some really, really good years. Stanton's won MVP, Yelich just won MVP. Ozuna's had an all-star too. And, he hasn't been the type of player that he was in his last year with the Marlins, where he had 37 home runs. He's still not a bad player. But this time around, he strikes out on a 96-mile-per-hour fastball in the black, and Scherzer strikes out the side without giving up a run. So as we head to the second inning, we are in a tie ball game of 0-0. Alrighty, so we are back, and so I just got this alert on my phone about this pitcher who died earlier this year. He played on the Angels, and his name was Tyler Skaggs. Now, it was really interesting how Skaggs died, as that slider misses outside 1-0 to Howie Kendrick. And what was interesting about it is that the Angels kind of hid the autopsy for a while. And a lot of people thought, maybe something weird happened. Like, if it was drugs and stuff, they probably would have announced it right away. But that's actually the very reason why they hid it for so long. It's because he was this beloved figure, and they wanted to honor him. And could have been a couple of factors. Maybe his family asked the Angels to hide it. But a recent report came out that when Skaggs, we already knew that Skaggs, when his autopsy came out, that he had oxycodone and alcohol in his system. But the new report came out and said that his one of the PR guys for the Angels actually gave it to him on a regular basis. And Kendrick rolls over to short. DeJean fires to first in time, 1 away. And which is pretty insane. So maybe the PR guy had something to do with covering up the autopsy, not releasing right away, and possibly more employees in the Angels knew the actual reason for the autopsy, or knew what actually happened to Skaggs and didn't want to report it. Maybe to just show in the higher light. Maybe they weren't ready yet, or maybe just to hide it as long as possible. No one really knows. But really, really sad. I mean, he was probably the best pitcher on the best starting pitcher, at least on the Angels staff. And yeah, so that was a tough blow for the Angels. Just sad too. It was pretty incredible because the day after, or like the next game they played after they found out he died, like the entire team had this amazing ceremony. Like they all, I think they all put their jerseys down the mound. Very similar to the case of Jose Fernandez when he died while he was with the Marlins, and they did the same thing. The Angels actually pitched a no-hitter that day, which really honored him. It was by like Felice Pena and one other guy. I should know who that is, and I'm sure my friend Matthias would know that when he calls in later. He knows a lot about baseball. So if you know that, Matthias, definitely let me know who the other pitcher was in that start. I think it's Felix Pena and Neil Ramirez, but I could be wrong. So anyway, the guy going for the Cardinals, back to the game, is Adam Wainwright, and shot by Juan, and Juan pits it and fires to first in time. Wow. I meant a shot right to Juan, but that was an impressive pick. I mean, really showing off why he is probably the best defensive second baseman in the game. I mean, Ryan Zimmerman hit a bullet to second base, and this isn't the type of pick that you can reach out and just pick like a forehand. He kind of had to like go back to hit so hard and kind of like bring it up to his waist, and it didn't get by him. He fielded it cleanly, set his feet and fired to first. So a beautiful play by Colton Wong. And yeah, again, he's probably one of the better second bases in the game because he just has all around good qualities, good base runner, good hitting, good fielding, really good fielding. That's probably his best attribute. And, it's interesting because he's always been regarded as a good fielder, and his offense is now, starting to work alongside him. He actually, I think, spent some time at AAA this year too. So his kind of standout season here is, all the more surprising. And Suzuki takes a high fastball in 2. So on the mound for the Cardinals, Adam Wainwright. Now, Wainwright originally closed out the World Series for the Cardinals in 2006. He's been on the Cardinals his entire career. I think this past year they signed him to a 1-year deal. And he actually had a really good month of September and has been a pretty good starter for them. Even got the Game 1 nod for the Cardinals this series, as Suzuki checks that one foul, still 0-2. And Wainwright, I think a couple of years back, he was like a 19 or 20 game winner, was third in Cy Young, and it was really impressive because this is started later in his career, and that was one of his best years, and he's in his 30s. Now he's in his mid 30s, and he's having another decent season, and trying to find a major league team, if not the Cardinals, after this season. So, yeah, it's really cool to see him still with the Cardinals and still dealing for them. And I don't know how I forgot this, but the batter up right now, Kurt Suzuki, I was remembering it earlier, but in the Dodgers-Nationals game, Game 5, he got hit in the face by a Walker Buehler fastball. And you see him now with the chin pallid as he does go around and strikes out swinging. But yeah, it was really scary. He couldn't play in yesterday's game. They kind of took him out, but he is okay. He's feeling fine enough, and he went through concussion protocols, so glad that Suzuki's okay. And as we get to the bottom of the second, the score is still tied 0-0, and time for a commercial break. Alrighty, so we are back to the game. Scherzer obviously still on the mound. Oh, that's actually the first time last inning was Scherzer's first time striking out the side in the postseason. So good for him. And kind of surprised it took him so long, actually, because, that's something that Scherzer does on a pretty regular basis. I mean, he's one of the most prolific strikeout pitchers in the last 10 years. He had 300 strikeouts last year. And, yeah, so pretty surprising. But the Nationals haven't been or at least far in the postseason all too often, especially during Scherzer's tenure. So that's okay. Or at least that makes sense why he hasn't done it before. Gives some justification. I mean, obviously, it's still a hard feat to do to strike out the side, but just all the more surprising that Scherzer hasn't done that yet in the postseason. Again, a starts limit probably has about, 5 to 7 starts. I mean, enough to probably strike at the side at least once, which is surprising, but not like an unfathomable amount of starts. Anyway, so Molina fouls went off, and it's still 2-2. Now, Yadier Molina. So I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I think Molina is the longest tenured player for a single team in all of baseball, and he has been with the Cardinals organization since 2005, and he's definitely in the twilight of his career. Still is a pretty decent defensive catcher. Not what he was a couple years ago. I mean, this guy had some 6 or 7 more seasons as a catcher, which is very impressive, in a large part because of his defense. And I think hitting-wise, he's always been, and he's ground to third. Rendon fires to first in time, dug out by Zimmerman, one away. And he's always been, I would say, a bit of above average catcher. I wouldn't put him as above average hitter, but probably an above average catcher. Or above average hitting catcher. That's what I'm trying to say. But, now he is hitting and starting to erode a bit, and he's still probably an above average hitting catcher, but not an above average hitter like he was in at least some of the seasons that he was an all-star. And he's no longer really an all-star in the National League. He hasn't been like that in a couple years. Still definitely a Hall of Famer. He really should be. And I think his career WAR is about 58 or so, which is, right along the lines of it for a Hall of Fame catcher. I think even maybe more so than a Hall of Fame catcher. So, I'm interested to see how long he will keep with the Cardinals. And, the Cardinals obviously thought long enough to trade away Carson Kelly and Luke Weaver, who they it's a catcher and pitcher combo for Paul Goldschmidt last year. So it's interesting that the Cardinals kind of give like their catcher the future, but they obviously have faith that Molina can at least catcher them for probably a year or two longer. And Carpenter fouls one off. So Carpenter is an interesting case. So I mean, even last year, Carpenter had one of his better seasons. And this guy's been a really good hitter for the Cardinals for a bunch of years. And, he's always had a pretty decent slugging percentage. I mean, I think last year he may have topped down his home runs, or it was one of the highest in his career. But a couple of seasons before that, he had 58 doubles as he fouls that one off. Still 0-2. And he was once regarded as a decent fielder, but now his fielding's been pretty atrocious since he's getting up in age. He's also had to shift around the infield. I think he's played second, he's played third, I think he's played first a little bit. And now he hasn't produced offensively or defensively this year, so definitely a bit of a struggle in the Cardinals lineup. Because their main sources of power is Goldschmidt, is DeJong, and is Juan. Now, DeJong and Goldschmidt are pretty good hitters, like just purely good with the bat. But it doesn't rank them among the better offensives in the National League, not amongst the Nationals, not amongst the Brewers, not amongst any of the American League contenders this year. Except ball's ground to first, and Zimmerman takes it himself for out number 2. So Scherzer has retired the last 4 batters after that 1-out walk in the first. And the cameras are zooming in on Cardinals manager Mike Shildt. So Mike Shildt spent a long time managing in the minors. And last year when Mike Matheny was fired, the Cardinals weren't doing that well. Mike Shildt took over and at least gave the Cardinals a pretty good chance to make the playoffs. We didn't miss by a lot last year. And, he was interim manager, then he got a full-time job as the manager for them. And he led the Cardinals to their division title this year, which is the first time in a while that it's happened for them because of the dynasty of the Cubs and Brewers. So, yeah, really good job by Shildt, and you got to love him because, he worked his way up and got an opportunity, made the most of it. Here comes the 1-1 to Edmonds. Is this Edmund? It's Edmund. Okay. So I think Edmund, he's definitely a rookie. He definitely hasn't played a lot for the Cardinals this year. And I think he's more so of a September call-up, but he found his way on the postseason roster as he swings through that 95-mile-per-hour fastball, now 2-2. And he has done nothing but break for the Cardinals. He's actually kind of pushed Carpenter a little bit out of his spot at third. Not today, because Carpenter is the last batter, and Edmund can play a lot of positions, including right field, where he's at today. But, if the Cardinals are going for more of a defensive side and still some decent offense, like Carpenter's offensive upside is higher than Edmund, at least this year, at least in the postseason. But, Edmund is pretty good. And the only reason why he's not playing third is because he can play other positions. And wow, a nasty changeup from Scherzer. So 4th strikeout for Scherzer in just 2 innings. As we head to the third, the score is still tied at 0. Forgot to put the mic near the music, so I do apologize about that. That's great. They have this audio library on YouTube, and they just have this free music that I can use. This isn't part of the normal baseball collection music that I have when I eventually do that. That'll be one of my segments that I do, kind of like best baseball songs, which will be fun. Alrighty, so we are back, and his last 5 home starts versus Nationals in the regular season, Adam Wainwright is 5-0, as that is powered deep into left field. So you have a beat on it. No, he does not. Yalla by baseball, Michael A. Taylor. Nationals up 1-0. They have once again taken the lead. They have had the lead the entire time this series. Cardinals have not had a lead at any point during the series. And wow, I mean, it's pretty crazy because Taylor is filling in for Victor Robles, who has been excellent for the Cardinals this season. I'm sorry, for the Nationals this season. Both were Reds, so excuse me. But I mean, Robles has like 20-20 power. Taylor is more speed and defense. So pretty crazy. And we got a caller, so let's answer that. Hello, you're on air.
Hey, Adam, it's Connor. How you doing, man?
Hey, Connor, how you doing?
I'm doing good.
It's been a while.
What are we talking about today? Yeah, it has been a while, man.
Yeah. Do you have any baseball questions, or do you want to just talk about like playoffs or whatnot?
I do have one question.
Yeah, you got it.
I'm interested in the Nationals and the Cardinals series. I want your what's your opinion on how the Nationals are going to use their bullpen? Obviously, they had a pretty easy last night with Anibal Sanchez, but since it wasn't so great in the regular season, I want what's your opinion on how they're going to use it going forward?
Yeah, that's a great question, Connor, and I think we'll see a lot of what we saw of the Nationals in the National League Division Series. So we all know the Nationals have a pretty poor bullpen. Kind of their best guys are Daniel Hudson and Sean Doolittle. Even those two aren't that great. So I think they're just going to ride their 4 starters, both in the starting role and the relief role, as much as they can. And luckily yesterday, they got 7 2/3 innings pitched for Anibal Sanchez, which really helped them out. Now, go ahead.
Well, I mean, they, even if they get ahead in the series, they can always bring him in the later games. Like in, I believe it was Game 5, they were able to use Patrick Corbin in the division series.
Yeah, no, you're definitely correct, and I think Corbin's almost been like their go-to reliever. We saw Scherzer come in a little bit. We saw Strasburg come in during the National League wildcard game in relief, and he actually got the win there. So that will be probably a common trend that we'll see, especially if they don't get a lot of innings pitched from their relievers.
Yeah. Now, staying on the subject of the Nationals, obviously with them doing better than ever without Bryce Harper, do you think they pursue Rendon? And do you think should they try to give Soto a contract similar to Acuna's?
So those are both good questions. And let's first discuss Rendon. So Rendon, actually in September, he was offered a 7-year, $200 million deal. Now,
I didn't know that.
Yeah, that was actually from an ESPN report. So the Nationals, definitely are interested in him. Now, Rendon probably didn't accept it because most players don't accept new extensions during regular seasons. But the Nationals will definitely remain interested in, Rendon is a big part of their offense. As for Soto, I mean, not a bad idea to try to give him a contract like Ronald Acuna Jr. because Soto's just going to keep getting better. This isn't his peak, and he already had a phenomenal underrated season. So I think they should sign to a similar 8-year, $100 million contract where it benefits them in the long run.
Yeah, I think I don't, because I mean, with their starting rotation, they seem to be poised for an even better year next year, especially if they can add some relief pieces.
Yeah, no, that's definitely very true. I mean, they have Corbin in the long haul, they have Scherzer in the long haul, they have Strasburg in the long haul. Although I think Strasburg has an opt out, but I mean, I think he should opt into his contract. And then you're totally right. They need a lot more relievers. And they tried to add some guys in the offseason, but they didn't really pan out for them too well. And they should definitely do so this offseason too.
Now, with the Yankees in this ALCS, what do you think is our best bet in utilizing our starting pitching? Do you think we should go for everyone 4 innings, and then we can almost have them as bullpen guys too? Or what do you think our best use of innings should be?
So I think you got to take it on a case by case basis because when you use so many relievers, even with the Yankees relievers they have one of the best bullpens in the game, if not the best bullpen, you got to bet on 5 guys going out and pitching their best and maintaining in like a 2-run lead. That's probably how it's going to be against the Astros if they do have the lead. So, obviously if their starter's not doing well, take him out. We got more than enough relief to help him out. But if the starter's doing well, aim for 5 to 6. That's what I would think is best.
Yeah, I mean, that's smart. Plus, if, the Astros start to see the relievers too many times, they have such a professional lineup up and down,
Yeah, they really do.
If they see him multiple times, it's going to be trouble for us.
Yeah, no, you're definitely right about that. And also, kind of an underrated factor that the Astros have is that they are really good at catching pitchers tipping their pitches, which was a factor in the NLDS against the Rays as well.
That's true. I heard Glasnow was tipping his pitches. I didn't see how, but I heard it was like a big thing.
Yeah, I think the way they did it is like anytime when he came set, if he came high, it was fastball. If he came low, it was curveball, which is pretty interesting.
Wow, that's a really telling sign too. That's something like pretty. I don't know. That's surprising for a professional pitcher. I mean, granted, he was out for so long with his forearm injury. That would have been amazing to see him go the entire year.
Yeah, no, you're definitely right. I mean, he was definitely a Cy Young candidate when he was healthy. It was really impressive.
I think he was like 6-0 when he went down. Like everyone else was still at like 3 or 4 wins. It was crazy.
Yeah, you're definitely right. I mean, it's amazing how much that trade for Chris Archer has already benefited the Rays. It's really insane.
Oh my gosh, the Pirates are looking silly on that. Speaking of the Rays, teams like them and the Athletics, how do you think their offseason is going to go? Because obviously, their fans are happy with the players, like with the production that their players have been getting them, 90 wins, a playoff team. But I'm sure neither of those franchises are happy with either just making it to the wild card or, and then ultimately losing in the division series. Because they have a good young core, but, do you think they'll be able to land, a star?
I mean, those teams, it's always going to be tough to sign the best of the best. Like, none of those teams could sign someone like Cole, who's going to demand $200 million plus in the offseason. What they need to do is they have to bet on the right guy. And, they got to, offer guys $15 to $20 million contracts, but they have to bet right because they don't have a lot of room for error as a small market team.
I mean, at least the Rays, they can bank on having a healthy Blake Snell next year, a healthy Tyler Glasnow, guys like Ryan Yarborough really stepped up. But then, they also have another year of Charlie Morton. If he keeps going the way he's going, they should sign him up again.
Yeah, I mean, I think the Rays are actually in a little bit of better position than the A's for a couple of reasons. Because the A's, I mean, they're almost like a cursed team. They keep going to the playoffs, but they're not really able to win a series, which is pretty sad. And I think the A's, I mean, even though they have some decent pitching, they'll have a full season from Sean Manaea, and they'll have a full season from Jesus Luzardo. They could probably use like a frontline starter in addition to Mike Fiers, who's not really your typical frontline starter.
Yeah, I mean they always pick their pieces well, and but I think the thing with the Rays is that they have a couple of young guys that everyone seems to have forgotten about from the San Francisco Giants. They have Matt Duffy and Christian Arroyo, but I know Christian Arroyo got sent over to the Indians. So they have Yandy Diaz, and I'm not sure if they're going to use him as a third baseman at all, but they still have kind of like an infield spot that they need to fill.
Yeah, I mean, I think they'll definitely test their luck with Diaz over there because, I mean, he was injured for a while, and I don't think Duffy's been as productive as he's been with the Rays because with the Giants, he had, the high batting average and the high contact skills. Now he's kind of fallen to like 260, 270, and his defense has gotten a little bit worse. So I think they'll definitely give Diaz a fair shot either at third or maybe to platoon with G-Man Choi over at first base.
Yeah, I mean they're always an interesting team. I mean it's always scary when they come to when they always come to town against the Yankees. I mean the Yankees did really well against them this year, but in past seasons they've always been scary.
Yeah, no, they had a really impressive season. I mean, I think baseball is better when the East is strong. So to have 3 really good teams in the East this year, and obviously the Yankees and Rays were better than the Red Sox, thankfully. But it was really cool, and it's nice to have good competition like that, and also for the Yankees, to be at the forefront of that competition and do the best out of them.
Now, staying in the AL East, as a Yankee fan, we're both Yankee fans, obviously. I know I'm drooling at the fact that the Red Sox could trade Mookie Betts. What direction do you think they're going to take?
So I actually got to interview a Red Sox scout a couple months back who actually helped Devers become the player that he has been this season, which is really cool. And he saw from Mookie Betts, and he knows the players well. He doesn't think Betts is going to return to the Red Sox when he's a free agent. So I think the Red Sox, what they need to do is at the very latest trade Mookie Betts by July 31st deadline in 2020, and cash out on him. But I don't see a future for Betts on the Red Sox. I don't really see a future for Martinez with the Red Sox either.
Yeah, I mean, can he opt out this offseason, Martinez?
Yeah, he can. And that's definitely a problem because the Red Sox have already so much money committed to Porcello and Price and Sale.
I remember hearing about before he was the player that he is now. I remember hearing about for both of them, for Bogaerts and Betts. I remember hearing about the Red Sox talking about trading for Matt Harvey, which that would have been something else. That would have changed the league completely.
Yeah, that definitely would have. I mean, Harvey's a sad case, getting released by the Angels this year and couldn't really make it as a Red. It's tough.
Yeah. So now with the new managers going around, I was surprised that the Cubs let Joe Madden go, but I think that he's found a really good place in Los Angeles. How long do you think it's going to be until we see Mike Trout in the playoffs?
I mean, the Angels are an interesting team because, they have the best player in baseball. Each year, they kind of try to reinforce their team with a lot more hitters. We saw that a couple years ago with Zach Kozar. We saw a couple years before then with Simmons and Pujols. And I think they just need to focus on getting pitching because I don't think they're an awful hitting team. So I think if they, maybe with new management, they can get more pitching. They can try to develop their pitchers more. I think we're still a couple years away, but I think we'll see it in a decent amount of time.
I mean, their bullpen's not terrible. Hansel Robles quietly had a really good year out of the closer's role.
Yeah. Robles actually, you're right. He did do very well. And they have this other guy named Kenyon Middleton, who was injured a bit.
You know what? I had him a couple years back when he was the closer. I had him on my fantasy team. And I remember him because I was so disappointed when he got injured and he had to get shut down for the year.
Yeah, I mean, he throws heat. He throws 100 miles per hour, and he's a good pitcher. So their bullpen's actually already in a decent place. So I think it's just more starting pitching, which they don't really have anyone of.
Yeah, I mean, they're a team that was crippled by the big contracts of C.J. Wilson and Jared Weaver that's still lingering in their rotation. I mean, once you sign big guys like that, you either have to, trade for them or dedicate a lot of funds. And then, when you're competing, sure, they're good when they're older, but as soon as they drop off or retire, it's tough to get, draft picks from when the team was, doing well because of them, but then falling off immediately after they left.
Yeah, the Angels were definitely late to that kind of Moneyball type of game that everyone is now a part of, trying to avoid the big contracts as much as they can, despite seeing, Harper sign a big deal, Machado signing a big deal. And the Angels just, bet on the wrong guys. I mean, Wilson was a good pitcher and Hamilton was a good player, and so was Pujols, but all of them have really not worked out for them. And they're always a team that keeps committing so much money, and they just got to focus on a lot of homegrown talent, which they're already getting a lot better of. And I think it's still going to be a couple of years, but if they keep developing their young talent and maybe sign some low signing contract with pitchers with high upside, that could benefit them.
Yeah, I mean, they've quietly put the one guy I like on that team. I like David Fletcher. He reminds me of, he does for them what Ronald Torreyes did for the Yankees a few years back. That guy gets on base, he plays multiple positions, he's a scrappy player. There's not a lot of guys like that in the league, and I think each team, can benefit from having one.
Yeah, no, he's 100% a throwback, and it's really great to see him there. I mean, he has like a 4% walk rate and like a 7% strikeout rate, which is unheard of. And he doesn't have like any power, just 3 home runs, but he has 300. He's a super utility player. I mean, you're right. Every team can use one. I mean, look at DJ LeMahieu for the Yankees. I mean, he's like the perfect example of it. Someone who can play most positions, play each position well, and hit pretty well too.
Yeah, I remember. I was disappointed when the Yankees signed him in the offseason. I just thought it was a waste of money. But I mean, I'm glad I'm eating my words now because he's just been outstanding. He's been an MVP candidate. And speaking of the MVP, do you think Bregman deserves it over Mike Trout?
So, to be honest, I still think Trout should win it. And I'm not a big fan of the idea like, oh, if you're on a winning team, you play more important games. I mean, it's like to those guys, again, like a regular season games.
I feel like you're just then discrediting what the players on half the league has done. I just don't think that's right.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so we agree there, and I think Trout still played enough of the season to still, win MVP. If he missed like a lot more time, and if there wasn't someone who if there was someone who was like neck and neck with him the entire season, then I would say that he wouldn't win it. But I think he still distances himself from Bregman a decent amount.
Yeah, I mean, even though on a baseball card you only see 134 games, if you put it in your head, that's only 6 games away from 140. And if you see 140, you're like, oh, the guy played the whole season. So I mean, and especially with his wins above replacement, that's something that it's historic what he's doing. But then on the flip side, there's Bregman who, even though he played more games, and he got close to him in WAR. People are making the argument, oh, he played shortstop when Correa was out, and even though I don't find this a valid point for argument, a lot of people like that he was on the winningest team in baseball.
Yeah, no, they definitely do. And at least, I mean, the Astros have so many good players. But Bregman did kind of carry the offense because Altuve was injured, Correa was injured. You can definitely look at that as these like non-numeric values that kind of put him ahead of Trout in some respects.
Even Springer was injured, correct?
Yeah, you're right. Yeah, Springer was injured.
Now, and another award race. Now, obviously, Pete Alonso, he's going to be the unanimous Rookie of the Year next year. But I have a few more questions for you on the NL rookies.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think that next year Brian Reynolds is going to hit above 300? And do you think Soroka is going to have an ERA under 3 next year?
That's a pretty good question. I mean, I don't know too much about Brian Reynolds besides the fact that, he kind of just burst on the scene. Like, it's funny, like in the middle of the year, all of a sudden you see Brian Reynolds top of the National League in batting average, which is hilarious.
Oh, my gosh. It was crazy. You know what? The Cardinals have a guy like him right now. They have Tommy Edman. He just came out of nowhere and hit 300 for him.
Yeah, I mean, he's giving Matt Carpenter a run for his money. He's been a mainstay for them for so many years.
Yeah, I was watching the Cardinals game last night, and they were talking about how the entire year Carpenter, was like trying to pull the ball. But then, last year where he had, the 36 home runs or whatever, and like at some point in the year he was in the MVP conversation, he used the opposite field so well. And I think that's a big thing that separates Reynolds and Edman is that they're switch hitters. They're lanky guys. They're these big, powerful dudes. I mean, obviously not everyone that's a switch hitter can be Francisco Lindor and hit 30-plus home runs. But I feel like they have such an advantage because they're trained on both sides of the plate and they just know how to use the entire field.
Yeah, I mean, I really agree with what you said earlier. Every team could use a Tommy Edman or a Brian Reynolds, guys who, hit 300, who field their position well, can play a lot of positions. And it's honestly really nice to see players like that because, that's kind of a dying type of player, kind of a dinosaur-esque player, if that's a word, in baseball because, everyone's going for the home run ball. But going back to your question, I think they'll be close to, Soroka being close to an ERA under 3, and I think Reynolds will be close to a 300 batting average. I mean, obviously, it's kind of hard to tell how players will do in their sophomore season. Do I think they can do it? Sure. But it's kind of a coin toss, I would say.
Yeah, but I mean, you know what? the potential is obviously not the potential, but the talent is there because, Soroka, you could argue he got tired. His ERA was above 4 in the second half. But then you look at guys like Cody Bellinger, who hits 39 home runs in his rookie year. Everyone's like, oh my gosh, this guy's amazing. And he is. But he hits 25 in his sophomore year, and then he bounces back. And this year, he's going to win the MVP. Granted, it would have been Yelich's, but you can't disregard the season that Bellinger had out in LA.
Yeah, no, you're completely right. I mean, baseball isn't really a linear sport where not a lot of guys are Mike Trout. You can just keep getting better each year. They usually go up and down and they work through it. And, sophomore season's a very testing season. Like, not everyone could be Ronald Acuna Jr. or Juan Soto in their sophomore year. They could be guys like Cody Bellinger, who still had a great sophomore year, just not as good as their freshman campaign.
Yeah, I mean, even, you look at guys like Andujar who misses out.
Yeah, I mean, that too. I mean, that was such a huge blow to the Yankees this year, especially since of his contribution the year before. I mean, the only reason why I didn't win Rookie of the Year because of Shohei Ohtani. He was just a different breed.
Yeah, that'll be interesting. It's crazy to see a guy like Ohtani because you know what, even how he's had the injuries, and some may say like, oh, you can attribute that to the change of routine in the American game. But even though a lot of people probably don't think about this, Ohtani's actually looking like a genius right now for coming over early, being selfless and giving up all that money that he could have had just because he loves the game so much, he wants to compete at that high of a level. If he had sustained these injuries over in Japan, there would have been a lot of questioning about his durability, and he may have never come over here in the first place.
Yeah, no, you raised a very good point. Sacrificing all that money because he just wants to be the best. And I think I read this article about Ohtani when he was first coming over. He just there's this campus in Japan that for the team he played at, and he would literally live on the campus. He just wouldn't leave it. He would just play baseball all the time there and just try to put himself to just get better. So he's a dedicated guy, and he can definitely pitch. He can definitely hit. And he also did that on a pretty regular basis in Japan too. He won, I think, best hitting pitcher honors in Japan too, and he was also one of the best pitchers. So, this isn't new for him that this kind of pitching hitting dynamic, but it will be interesting to see how he does over a long period of time.
No, I mean, if you look at his numbers through 162 games, they're crazy. He's such a talented player. Again, the problem is consistency. Consistency is always key.
Yeah, no, you're very right. I mean, he's done an excellent job so far. He's won Rookie of the Year. He did a great job this season, despite still recovering from Tommy John and being a DH for half a year. He still had an excellent sophomore campaign, and it'll be interesting to see how he does in the mound next year too.
Yeah, I mean, that's speaking of Ohtani, that just, he reminded me, as we were talking about the Angels earlier, he's a guy that you can build a rotation around. He's a young guy. He throws 100. He's got multiple pitches. If you manage him carefully enough, you don't want to have a situation like Darvish where, he kind of disappears for a year and a half. Even though he had an outstanding second half this year, you still got to be careful with guys that are coming over from Japan. You look at Daisuke Matsuzaka, Tanaka. Obviously, no one expects them to be what they were in Japan, but you can kind of see that they get tired over the years.
Yeah, and I would probably attribute that to they've been playing in the professionals in Japan for such a long time, and they're usually all these big name players. But I mean, he definitely has ace-like potential. I mean, he throws 100. He has great stuff. When in that limited experience in his freshman year, he was excellent. He was an ace, and you're right that the Angels can certainly build a rotation around him. It's just, do they have the young guys to come up next year and do it? Can they find these low risk, high reward guys in the off season? That's kind of what's going to boil down to. And I think if they can do that, want to maybe get one or two consistent bullpen guys, we could see the Angels as a surprise team.
Yeah, I mean, look at the Rangers. The Rangers were in it for, it's not, I wouldn't say majority of the year. I'm not sure, but they were in it for a decent chunk.
Yeah, no, you're very right. I mean, I think by the All-Star break, they were, right in the midst for a wild card game, and they still finished a couple games under 500. And a lot of that was attributed to signing Mike Minor to that 2-year deal and signing Lance Lynn to that $3 or $30 million deal, which everyone thought was insane. And then he had one of his best years and just such a comeback season. And then they build around guys like Norma Mazzara and Joey Gallo breaks out. I mean, they're also a really, they could be a surprise team next year.
Yeah, and then you have Danny Santana too. That guy came out of nowhere.
Yeah, I think he came from like the Mariners or something. And he had an excellent season. I mean, this guy was kind of like a utility player. He had 20 home runs and batted .280, so he was great.
Speaking of the Mariners and, players coming over from Japan, did you see, like Yusei Kikuchi? Obviously, he had a disappointing season for both himself and the Mariners. But did you see that happening? Did you think he was going to perform as poorly as he did?
I was definitely surprised by how poorly it was because in spring training, he looked pretty sharp. I mean, spring training, like, you never know with that. I mean, as a Yankee fan, you can attest to Greg Bird in 2017 and how well he did. Yeah, which is still a sore spot. But, I mean, he has good stuff. It's just maybe, first-year jitters and, not everyone can translate to the big league right away. So, he can't really go down from here. So I'm sure he'll have a better year, too.
I mean, I just, when I look at him, I think of guys like, Byung-Ho Park and how he couldn't hack it with the Twins. But I mean, the thing that surprised me with Yusei Kikuchi is when he was in Japan, I believe in the season, his last season before he came over, I believe he had a 3.27 ERA. And now, obviously that's a respectable ERA, but, it's not like jumping off the charts like, Tanaka, how he had like a 1.17 ERA, something as minuscule as that when he came over. So for me, I almost felt that like Yusei Kikuchi was kind of a fad. I don't know. I expected him to be an innings eater for the Mariners, get around 160 innings, 130 strikeouts. But I certainly didn't expect the, 5.5 ERA that he finished with.
Yeah, no, your prediction is definitely understandable and very respectable. I mean, you're completely right. I mean, I didn't really see him as someone who was his amazing bait shot from Japan. He was a really good pitcher, but he wasn't one of the better pitchers. So I think, obviously coming to the, play baseball in the United States, that's gonna be a tough change for him. And I thought like, probably a 4-something ERA, something like you said, innings eater, 130 Ks, decent amount of strikeouts, less innings pitched, but not this, not 5.5 ERA, not one of the worst qualifying pitchers in the American League. That was a bit underwhelming.
Speaking of underwhelming pitching, even though that the Mets finished the year on 86 and 76, which is respectable, I was actually surprised to find out that was their final record. Do they make the playoffs next year? I mean, obviously, another pitcher who can't get any worse, Edwin Diaz. But the Mets had 30-something blown saves and still finished 86 and 76. And as a New York Yankee fan, that's kind of scary to think that if the Mets figure that out, they can become, a 95-win team.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like just because they're the Mets, they're going to find some way to mess it up. Like they're just the Mets. Like I hate to say it, like I hate to think like teams are cursed, but like they kind of have that vibe about them. But if you look at like just pure talent, I mean, they have the guys there. Their hitting is actually surprisingly good. They have a lot of guys who can rake on that team. And then you have David Grom, you have Syndergaard, you have Stroman. The talent's there. They just need an overhaul in their bullpen. That should be their main focus this offseason. And also replacing. Go ahead.
I mean, Stroman was a spark plug, but then you have guys saying you guys saying already like Seth Lugo, saying that all of his goals are, starting pitcher oriented. But to me, that's putting that out there like that's almost going up to your coach and saying like, hey coach, can I play here? Even though that may not be what's best for the team. Essentially, for a part of the year, I mean, I know he had one hiccup in a game where like he really blew up and his ERA ballooned, but he was essentially a super reliever for them and really kind of cleaned up Diaz's act for a couple of weeks.
Yeah, I mean, it's never good when you're a guy that says I want to be in this position. It's understandable, especially because you can make more money as a starting pitcher if you have success there rather than the bullpen. And he does have a legitimate case because the Mets don't really have a 5-starter right now since Wheeler's a free agent. But he should say I'm gonna be placed wherever the team wants me, but I would like to be a starter. That'd be a better way to say it rather than I'm just gonna focus on starting duties.
Yeah, I mean, the Mets, their offense is the thing that it's almost disappointing just from a baseball standpoint is because they could have had such an exciting lineup with McNeil, who's hitting 330, Alonso, who's hitting 50 home runs, Conforto, who's putting up like an 850 OPS, and then you have guys mixed in here or there. But then you could get a young stud coming up like Jared Kelenic.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no.
So it's.
Yeah, I mean, Mets have like kind of their version of a young stud with already with Ahmed Rosario, who just keeps getting better. And yeah, I mean, it is tough to see that Kelenic won't be playing for them. I mean, they kind of shot themselves in the leg with that one, taking on Cano's contract and taking a Diaz that wasn't nearly or anywhere close to the closer he was last year. So that's tough for them. And their farm system needs to get better too. They still have one of the worst farm systems. They don't really have too many hitters coming up for them. So they kind of just have to work with what they got and just try to find free agents, which is not always the best case.
Maybe even like hope for a few surprises, like how Joe Adell became, the top 5 prospect out of nowhere for the Angels. They had, for the longest time, they were barren in the top 100 prospects.
Yeah, I think Adell was always seen as a highly touted player. I mean, he just came up at like 18. But yeah, I mean, now their farm system, over time when they just kept rebuilding it, you'll find themselves in like the top 10 and have some top 100-esque prospects. And, that's kind of what the Mets need to focus on too. I mean, is it the worst idea to trade Syndergaard at the deadline next year if they're not really in it? Yeah, it really is, because they can get some sort of haul and just rebuild a little bit.
Yeah, I thought they should have traded them this year. I mean, they're handcuffed with finances between Cano, Cespedes, and Jed Lowry. Did Jed Lowry even play like more than 10 games this year?
I don't think so.
But Sean just said he played 1 game, the last game of the season.
Well, at least he could say he played in 2019. But that was a very costly 1 game of like $12 million.
Yeah, I mean, they're a franchise that it just seems like you've given them the tools to succeed, and they won't follow the instructions. Between Callaway and Vargas having that scrap with the reporter, and then Vargas being traded away and just supposedly Van Wagenen telling Callaway what to do. It's just, I think it's a good thing that they got rid of Callaway because essentially it hits the reset button. But I think, and I've talked to a couple Mets fans, and every single one of them wants Joe Girardi. They want a sense of experience and a sense of professionalism. They don't want to try out, they don't want to have a guy that's never done this before, because, the Mets, it seems that the same thing has been happening over and over since, 2015, since the last time they were in the World Series. It just seems like it's been 5 seasons of repeat.
Yeah, no, it's the same story for them every year. They have a decent offense. They have decent starting pitching. Bullpen blows up. Management is all sorts of weird and annoying. And, I think a lot of Mets fans I agree with you. They should go after Joe Girardi. And he does bring that level of professionalism because he's been a manager for a while, and he's kind of a no-nonsense type of guy. And he was a very good manager, as we both know. And, maybe he can right the ship a little bit.
I mean, I'm going to be honest. I was disappointed when the Yankees let Girardi go, and I found out that they, obviously, Aaron Boone knows the game and everything, but I was a little wary because he had never managed before. But after seeing him this year, he really stepped up his managerial confidence this year. Not that getting thrown out of games is, encouraged, but I feel that he stood up for the team this year just as much as Girardi has in the past, which is something that even though they won 100 games in this first year, I feel that he was a little timid.
Yeah, I mean, Girardi was a great manager for us, and it was very controversial. The Yankees didn't try to re-sign him after 2017 because he took them to within one game of the World Series. But I think that series in the ALDS with the Indians probably cost him his job a little bit. And on Boone, it was very scary. Having this guy without any experience, try to take the reins from Girardi, who had a lot of success, and the Yankees trying to build off the Yankee success the prior year. And and he definitely brings a lot of passion, just like Girardi. And I think he's a little bit more of a new age manager than Girardi, a bit more close with the players. And I think what Boone does a bit better than Girardi, I think he handles, not that Girardi did a bad job of the bullpen, but I think Boone trusts his starters a bit more than Girardi did. Because Girardi was just off the hook. As soon as the fifth inning was going around, even if the pitcher was doing well. It was nothing with that. And I think Boone's just a tad better than that. But I'm not really sure exactly the examples that Boone was timid this year, but if you have any, I'd love to hear them.
I mean, the thing with Girardi and his use of the bullpen, granted, our starting pitching wasn't tremendous this year, but for me, I know as a fan, I always felt confident when he went to, you have a guy, Zach Britton, Adam Ottavino, they both had ERAs under 2, Chapman, who's throwing 100, Chad Green, who he showed flashes of his former self this year. And then obviously I didn't like the utilization of Nestor Cortez in high leverage situations, but he's a guy that, he did his job this year and he did it well. He had a few hiccups, but the thing about having a bullpen like that is that everyone can learn from each other. You have so many good guys in there and then so many young guys who, when you're young, you're just so easily pliable, and you can learn quicker when you're 25 than when you're 35, and I think that's a great culture that the bullpen has.
Yeah, you're right. The bullpen is great, but this is just my personal opinion on it, and it is backed. I understand, okay, starters are worse third time around. Sure, Yankees have a great bullpen. Okay, it makes sense ideally to go 5 innings and let their relievers handle the rest. But when they do that in high pressure situations, when they do that on a regular basis, and you have to bet on 4 guys having their A game rather than just one guy who's already doing well. I think that can become a problem. So that's why I kind of like Boone a bit more than Girardi in at least that respect. That he just trusts the starters a bit more. And I know, a lot of times during Girardi's tenure that we didn't have the best rotation, but there was times where Tanaka or CeCe or someone else was cruising through 5 innings, like in that crucial ALDS Game 2 against Indians. CeCe was doing excellent, and he just took him out and put in Green, and it, he was still young back then, and then the grand slam happened. He held in Robertson a bit too long, and I think that was definitely a mistake, or putting in Lance Lynn into a situation with bases loaded. That was Boone, but it's not great. It's not a good idea to take out a starting pitcher who's mowing down guys. Now, if you see the hitters, launching the ball deep into the outfield or hitting hard hit balls, sure, take him out in a playoff game. But if he's coasting, there's not real reason to take him out, even if you have guys behind him ready to go. That's just my personal opinion on it. But, we can agree and disagree on that.
No, yeah, you're right with that because, I think obviously a good bullpen is a great thing to have, but I feel that, managers across the league, they get a little cookie cutter sometimes. You see guys maybe get a little antsy with their bullpen where, their starter could be cruising through 6 and they only have, 75 pitches, but then they pull him because it's I'll give him a little rest. But it's not Little League where there's an 85 pitch limit. These guys they're professionals. They've been throwing their whole lives. They have the stamina and they've been trained to go 100 pitches. So I agree that, if a starting pitcher has his A game, he's only doing this once every 5 days. Let the guy, have his moment, enjoy what he's doing, and it's just best for the team. I just think it's silly for a manager to pull the trigger on a guy that he's just been I haven't used him in 6 days. I need to get him innings. One day rest isn't going to hurt him, and major league pitchers, they're throwing every day. It's just a matter of, the quantity and the intensity at which they're throwing.
Yeah, I mean, it is ridiculous when, someone's coasting through 75 pitches and they are like, all right, like, he hasn't pitched in a while, let's take him out. There's a difference. If you're throwing 75 pitches and every inning the team is putting pressure on you and you have to deal with that, they're scoring runs, that's a lot harder than coasting through 5 innings, averaging 15 pitches an inning. There's a difference. So, and I think, it's hard to you have to recognize that. And you obviously have to balance, like, okay, for 1-0 game, our starter cannot screw up. Like, I'm fine with guys warming up in between innings. That's what relievers are made to do. But you're right, starters get the ball once every 5 games. They're professionals too. They let them pitch, let them go out there. And if there's really a situation that they need to be taken out, then all right, put in your relievers, which the Yankees, can afford.
Yeah, I mean, I know. In the middle of the season, there was the Chapman rumors that surfaced, but everyone seems to have forgotten about those now. But personally, I don't think it'll be smart for Chapman to leave. I mean, he's just found a good home. I feel like he's comfortable with the Yankees, and if he were to try his luck anywhere else, I feel like it may be different because it's kind of a lot with his name coming over. I feel like fans will have great expectations. But in New York, we've gone through the ups and downs with him where he's had a couple rough patches. I just feel like if he left and went anywhere else, there'd be too much pressure, and I almost think he would drop in his performance a little bit.
I wouldn't say that'd be too much pressure anywhere else. I mean, I think New York provides the most pressure, but I do agree with you. It'd be a really bad idea for him to opt out because, first of all, who's going to pay him that type of money? Let's be real. No one's going to pay him that type of money with his fastball decreasing. I mean, yes, he had a really good season, but he's not the reliever that he was with the Reds. And
yeah, he's not hitting 103 anymore. I think I saw 102 once or twice this season.
Yeah, exactly. We've seen him also just sometimes his fastball is 95, sometimes it's 98, but even 100, just he's not touching that as much as he used to, and he's still doing a great job. It's just why would teams want to pay Chapman more, and why would he want to risk leaving a good team too? So I don't think he's going to opt out. If he does, I think that'd be an awful decision.
Yeah, I mean the way the Yankees have been going this season, I mean we'll see how they do tonight. I'm hoping for a win. I think we're lined up for a good performance, but if anything, I just hope we add pieces. And obviously, the only thing I want to get rid of is Ellsbury's contract. That and maybe Clint Frazier's attitude. I was saying this. I was hoping this off season that maybe not the one that we're heading into, but the off season of 2018, 2019, that they would maybe package guys like Frazier and Chance Adams when Adams still had a little bit of value. Now he's just a regular guy stuck in the back of the bullpen. But maybe be like, okay, we'll package these prospects for you if you take the cap of Ellsbury's salary. I know the Braves did that with someone. The Braves took on someone's contract and just to kind of get rid of him. I forget who it was though.
It might have been Hector Oliveira, I believe.
Okay.
It could have. Yeah.
Right. Oh, it was Matt Kemp. I think Matt
Oh,
Kemp
you're right.
is who I was thinking of.
Wait, wasn't it the Reds who the Reds got him, but then they traded him. I think it was the Reds who took up the contract. It was between the Dodgers and Reds in that regard. And then
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, but yeah, I mean, I think it's tough to trade those guys right now. I mean, you're right. We had that window last year, but now Ellsbury has no value. Chance Adams has no value, and I think Frazier, at least with the media, and especially being in New York, I think everything that he says is exacerbated a little bit by the media. But he's not really doing himself any favors. Even when he isn't just talking about how he really wants to play in the majors and how he's a bit sick of it AAA, which is true for I'm sure everyone in AAA. He's a bit too blunt about it, and also on his Instagram, he posted himself just leaning against a wall with Scranton signing back. I mean, that doesn't help your public image at all. And you really need your public image to be good in New York too.
Yeah, I mean, he's a professional athlete. He just hasn't, given off the vibe of a professional person yet. And I think if, you give him a market where he can almost be contained, like just as an example, sending Matt Harvey's ego to Cincinnati, I think that, definitely humbled him a bit. And if not humbled him, it definitely frustrated him because, he couldn't use the media as an outlet to get attention. But then, you send guys like even Trevor Bauer, Cleveland, they're not a huge market, but at least they're a competitive team. So I think if you send Clint Frazier over to a team where, just because of their demographic, it almost, quiets him down a little bit, he might even find a little bit more success. But he's definitely an MLB caliber player. He just, obviously his defense needs to improve, but his bat is there.
Yeah, his bat is there. His bat is there, and he has actually a really good arm. He's just awful at tracking balls. I mean, I got to witness that firsthand when I went to Yankee Stadium press box a couple weeks ago, and he had a terrible route to a ball. I mean, I don't think they should trade him just yet, just because I think the Yankees should give him that one more chance to be that Yankee left fielder of the future. Obviously, I think they should re-sign Gardner because he had pretty much a career year offensively, and also if you trade Frazier now, I don't think they're going to get that much for him. Maybe like a couple decent prospects or two, but not a highly touted one. I think you got to have him up his stock value a little bit more, and then if they decide to trade him, then okay.
Yeah, give him a little bit more of a sample size. I mean, even Gardner, I almost I did forget that Gardner was a signing this season. He's when you think of the Yankees, the current day Yankees, you think of Brett Gardner. And I remember I wasn't happy when the Yankees signed Gardner. I thought they should have signed Andrew McCutchen. But obviously the move that they made turned out for the better.
Yeah, I mean, that's understandable to think the offseason, especially since we had McCutchen do pretty well for us. And, Gardner didn't really look good with the bat last year, but, he proved a lot of doubters wrong. It'll be very interesting to see how he does in his age 37 season, how his offense goes from there. But he's still a very capable outfielder, too. And, he definitely does represent the Yankees. He's the longest tenured Yankee, as we both know. He's been on the team since 2008. He was there in the 2009 team. He's still a leader in the clubhouse, and I think it's mutual that they want him to retire as a Yankee. So, I mean, I could still see him on the Yankees a year or two more, but I think at a certain point they do have to move on from him.
Yeah, I mean, I hope he sticks around for as long as he can because I mean, he's just a good energy from him. I mean, something as simple as banging a bat on the top of the dugout to having the month of August where he hit. I believe he hit double-digit home runs in August.
Yeah, I think he also had double-digit home runs in September. That might be the month you're thinking of. It might be August too. But, yeah, I mean, that whole they call it let Brett bang, and then all the players, if you notice, when they get on base, they shoot their arm upwards to simulate the bat banging the wall. And, it just became a whole thing, and it's great. And he does rally the troops. It's awesome, to have guys like, Gardner and CeCe and Boone to just have these quotes from him, which is great.
Yeah, I mean, it's the same thing as Todd Frazier starting to iconicize the thumbs down.
Yeah, that was great. And then you had that Mets fan that one game who did that too, and they took a picture together. I mean, we have a fun team, and I think even if they do let Gardner go, someone, and we already have guys like Judge who can step up and just be there and just give a lot of life to our team. So it's really fun to see those type of guys.
Yeah, I mean, I'm as much success as we've had this year. I'm always excited to see what the Yankees have in store for the offseason and then the next season to come.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, each offseason is usually a fun offseason for the Yankees, so it's always cool to see that, and it'll be interesting to see how the result of their playoffs this year and what they decide to do with their team.
All right. Unfortunately, I have to go. I mean, dinner's starting for me. This was an outstanding conversation. I haven't been able to talk baseball like this in a long time. And I mean, someone like you pretty much know everything. You always surprise me with the stats that you know, from David Fletcher's walks, walk to strikeout rate. I mean, it's just incredible. I would love to have this conversation, another time. So definitely let me know.
Yeah, dude, you're welcome to come on air any week, and you have my contact. So anytime you feel like talking about baseball, go ahead. And you were a great person to have on air too. You know your own baseball stats that were really surprising and really well. And I think it was a great conversation. And we talked for a while, and it was really good.
Awesome, man. I appreciate it. Yeah, I'll definitely give you a ring.
That sounds good, Connor. Have a good one.
Yeah, you too, man. Enjoy your break.
Thanks. You too. Bye.
Bye-bye.
So that was Connor Hamilton. And we did have actually the longest conversation on my show so far. That was about 50 minutes. But I think you guys can agree it was a very good conversation. And, he knows a lot about baseball. So that was really fun. We don't have too much time left. We got about 18 minutes, and we do have another caller come in a little bit. So I'm trying to figure out what to do. Oh, well, we do have one thing that I can talk about really quick. So Scherzer, while Connor and I were talking about baseball, Scherzer, meanwhile, has had a no-hitter through the first 5 innings, which is pretty bizarre because Anibal Sanchez for the Nationals had 7 2/3 no-hitting. So just like, what is going on with the Cardinals offense right now? The Nationals pitching, so far, the biggest theme of the series is that they are exposing the Nationals offense, which is the Cardinals offense, which is interesting because, if you look at the players on the Cardinals, they don't really have that too much of an offense. They have there are 3 guys who are above average offensive players are Colton Wong, Paul Goldschmidt, and Paul DeJong. And DeJong is not hitting this series. And yeah, so that leaves them with 2 guys. So, I mean, they have guys with experience on the team like Carpenter and Molina, but yeah, so it'll be interesting to see how that theme perpetuates throughout the series. But so far, it's kind of been a lot of really good pitching, which you would expect from both sides, at least starting rotation wise. And Cardinals have definitely benefited from Wainwright pitching pretty well, and Flaherty has been amazing all year. And then they have guys like Dakota Hudson, Miles Mikolas, and Mikolas had a great start yesterday. So, this could be a very kind of pitching-oriented series. But I think the Nationals do have the edge because they're really exposing the Cardinals hitter right now. And then they have Soto and Zimmerman and Rendon and Robles when he gets healthy in their back pocket. So I think they'll be okay. They also have Eden too. So it'll be very interesting to see how this series continues. And I will check the score right now just to make sure that Wainwright's still doing well, which I think he is. I remember last time that when I came off we stopped streaming the game, the Nationals 1-0. They still are. Yeah, Wainwright has 8 strikeouts and 5 2/3 innings pitched. So, Wainwright did his part. Mikolas did his part yesterday. I'm interested to see if the Cardinals offense can help them out a bit. Hold on one second. There we go. All right, so pretty much, I did not think that conversation was going to go as long, but that's 100% fine because it was really good conversation. I think it was really productive. I don't know if it makes a lot of sense to broadcast a game for 10 minutes until my buddy Matthias calls. Maybe that's just the way to go. I didn't really have anything set besides broadcasts or interviews today, to be honest. So I'm not sure. I can probably play a couple baseball songs, but yeah, let's maybe do that. No, because then YouTube will just take it off. And I do have this podcast streamed live on YouTube to just show future employers and to have it archived and all that stuff. So we can't really do that. So all right, we'll go back to the game. Even if it's only for like 10 minutes or so, it gives me some broadcasting practice and I can hear some cool baseball information. Or I can talk about the Yankees-Astros tonight. I guess I could do that and see where we go from there. So yeah, let's do that. So, Yankees Astros. So if you guys don't know already, Yankees and Astros are the two teams playing in the American League Championship Series, the series right before the World Series. Now, their game starts tonight at 8:08 p.m. and it's going to be Tanaka versus Zach Greinke. And with the Rays taking them to Game 5 and forcing them to use Verlander Game 4 and forcing them to use Cole in Game 5, I think the Yankees can actually win this. I think they're in a good position. Now, will they actually win it? That's a different story. But I think they have the best case scenario from that with the Astros winning because they are facing Greinke and probably Miley, Game 3 and 4. And we do have a caller, so we'll get back to that point. Hello, you're on air.
What's going on, Adam?
Hi. Good. How are you, Matthias?
Doing all right. How are you doing?
I'm good. Grinding through the 2 hours here, so I do appreciate calling in. Yep.
Yeah. All right. So you said you wanted to talk playoffs.
Yeah. So who do you got for Nationals Cardinals? What are your reasons, and what do you think of the series so far?
So all bias aside, I have the Nationals winning the series in 7. I just think the Cardinals' offense kind of isn't that good. I think they only had like 2 players with above average offensive seasons. Their team batting average also pretty terrible. I guess that their starting pitching is pretty strong, but the bullpen, Carlos Martinez has been awful this postseason. And I understand that the Nationals also don't have a very good bullpen, but I think outside that one meltdown in Game 3 of the last series, I think they've been pretty good. And I just think their lineup overall much better, and their starting rotation, they have the big 3. That's all they need, personally.
Yeah, I mean, I think this is the National Series so far, and I'll top your big 3 with a big 4 because Anibal Sanchez really stepped up yesterday for the Nats. And you're right. I mean, the Nationals also have the luxury of having their starters go in the bullpen, which I don't think the Cardinals have as much. And so their bullpens are about the same. The Nationals have better starting pitching. And in terms of hitting, I mean, the Cardinals don't have guys like Juan Soto and Rendon. Their guys are Paul Goldschmidt and Paul DeJong after that. Yeah. DeJong hasn't really hit at all this series, and Juan is not really that great of a hitter. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, well, also, people say, like, Paul DeJong's great, but, like, Paul DeJong hit .230 this year and had, like, a 700 OPS. That's not good. Like, he made the All-Star team because the Cardinals needed a representative. I don't think he's actually that good. Unless he played against the Mets all year, because he'd be freaking Hank Aaron if he played the Mets for 162 games.
Yeah, you're right. I didn't realize he was that bad. I mean, he's still not an awful hitting shortstop. He has good power. He's kind of one-dimensional in that way. But, yeah, I mean, the Cardinals don't really have too many guys to show for an offense, and they're really just banking their starting pitching to carry them all the way. But as we're seeing with the game so far, I mean, Scherzer just dominated through the lineup, and it doesn't really look like Nationals are going to line up on their pitching anytime soon.
Yeah, so I picked the Nationals in 7, as I said earlier, and yeah, I just think this is. And they also upset a really good Dodgers team, so I think they have more momentum going. Like, yes, the Cardinals upset the Braves, but I think there's a difference between beating the Braves, who were like, yeah, they were pretty strong, and the Dodgers, who won 106 games and looked like they were just going to run through the whole league.
Yeah, no, you're very much right. I mean, the way they won it too, I mean, it was just insane. I think the Nationals definitely have more of like that vibe than the Cardinals do. I mean, the way they came back against the Brewers, the way they won Game 5 against the Dodgers. And I think the Braves-Cardinals series was like, it seemed pretty evenly matched during the whole time. Not saying the Nationals-Dodgers series wasn't, but like just going into it, the Dodgers just looked like they would just dominate the Nats. And they were definitely the heavyweight in that battle, at least coming into it.
Yeah, I definitely agree.
So how about American League? Yankees, Astros, who you got? What are your reasons? Yeah, let me hear it.
Well, you're probably going to roll your eyes at this one. I have the Astros in 7. The Astros, their starting rotation may have struggled a little bit, but Frankie got hit hard in that last start, but he also had a really long layoff between his 2 starts, so he probably was a little bit rusty, whereas Justin Verlander only had 3 days rest between his 2 starts, so he was probably pretty gassed going in Game 4. And also, the Astros barely gave by the Rays, but they also went 60-21 at home, and as it showed, they won all 3 home games kind of convincing. So I think home field advantage. Their overall team looks better. I have the Astros winning.
Yeah, I mean, trust me, I actually didn't roll my eyes on this, and it's still it's a very valid point. I mean, it actually reminds me a lot of 2017 because it very well could go Astros win all their home games, Yankees win all their home games, and then the Astros win it all. And it's interesting too because the Yankees got the best possible outcome of the Astros winning the American League Division Series because they have Greinke and I'm guessing probably Miley going Game 2 on the road.
Verlander going to Game 2.
Oh, it's actually Verlander going to go with him on short rest again? Wow, okay. It's not. I mean, it's more rest than last time, but it's still interesting that you're going that way. But I think, I mean, I think Verlander, he went 84 pitches in Game 4, so I'm pretty sure that is short rest. But I mean, I still think they're in a good position because they're not facing the belly of the beast on the Astros home turf. At least they're facing Cole and their home territory. They really do a good job at home. I mean, they're one of the better teams at home this season. Not maybe as good as the Astros, I don't think as well, but they're still a very convincing team. And I think it'll be a really good matchup between the two, and it'll come down to the wire. But I all in all, Astros probably do have the advantage. I mean, they are the team to beat right now.
Yeah, I think Houston also, their lineup has, outside of those 2 games on the road, they've performed really well. Altuve has been excellent as always. Bregman's starting to hit again. Gurriel's really good. I just think overall, like the Yankees, don't get me wrong, they're a very good team too, and they swept the Twins convincingly. But I'm not sold on their pitchers. Severino has barely pitched this year. Paxton, I trust more than Tanaka personally. And then their bullpen, like you can only ride your bullpen for so long. Like, yes, their bullpen's very good, but if you're pitching them almost every day, they're going to tire out.
Yeah, no, I agree with you 100% there. I mean, if they can't have their relievers go 5 innings every game of the series, especially if they even have a 1-run lead or a game's within 2 runs. One of those 5 guys is going to break, and that'll just give the Astros all the more advantage. So they're, to win this series, they have to get a lot out of Paxton, knocking all those guys. I mean, I think they're a team that if they can get 5 innings, 2 runs, ball almost every time out from these guys, I think they got a good shot. But that's doing that against the Astros, who you're right, who have an insane offense. And, Yankees obviously have a great offense of their own, but Astros, they have they don't have more clutch, might even have more clutch players. They have guys who just top through bottom, no doubt about it, can just produce anytime. The Yankees are still in that weird feeling. It's okay, can Stanton really produce in the playoffs? Can Encarnacion do really well against this high volume pitching? Can Judge also do well? They have done guys you expect Torres to do really great off. Can Gardner still maintain it? It's just I feel the Yankees still have more question marks. So, I still think it's probably the Astros series, but I'm just hoping as a Yankee fan, yeah.
Yeah, I just think also the Yankees have too many guys that strike out a lot, and that plays right into the Astros strategy.
Yeah, I mean,
Judge, Stanton, Sanchez, even Torres, they all strike out a lot. So, and the Astros have the top 2 strikeout pitchers in all of baseball.
Yeah, I mean, it seems like we're going to see Yankees get the majority of their offense via like home runs, like, and it might not be a lot, maybe like 1 or 2 home runs a game, and then strike out like 13 times every game. I mean, they're a lot better about the team strikeout rate this year than a lot of years previously, but it's still going to be a big challenge against guys like Cole and Verlander. But I think if they can win 1 out of 2 games in Houston, I think they'd be in a pretty decent position to try to win this.
Yeah, I definitely think so too.
Yeah, if Houston comes up too well, then I think that's pretty much it. I think that puts way too much pressure on them, and I think that'd be kind of too much out of the way for them to try to come back in the series at that point.
Yeah, for sure.
So I'm guessing you probably have the Astros win it all. Like, that'd be pretty interesting if you
Yeah.
saw like an Astros National Series.
Yeah, I still have the Astros winning it all. I've had the Astros winning since the beginning of the year. They were my end of season pick too, so I'm sticking with them.
Yeah, no, obviously a good choice to stick with. I mean, it'll be interesting because if we see like Yankees Nationals or Astros Nationals, Nationals could still very much win it. I mean, it'll be interesting to see how they maintain themselves against the Cardinals and how their starting pitching will be utilized in the bullpen in an entire 7-game series. And if their bullpen can be a little bit better than in the postseason than during the regular season, it'll be very interesting to see how they do against the Cardinals, which so far so good, and how they could do in a potential World Series against the Yankees or Astros.
Yeah, I agree on all fronts right there.
All right, sounds good. Well, I got to pretty much close it out here, but thank you so much for calling in and talking with me.
Yeah, thank you for having me on.
Yeah, of course. Have a good one, Matthias.
You too.
Bye. So that was my good friend, Matthias Altman-Karazaki, who knows a lot about baseball, obviously, as you guys can tell right there, and really happy that he called in. And, really good conversation today with Matthias and Connor. And we got to broadcast the game a little bit, so it was really a good time today. It's a good time every day that I'm here because I'm doing something that I really do care about. So as we wrap up, Nationals looking primed to, go to the World Series, their first World Series as a franchise. I guess Astros will be a dogfest the entire time. And, Matthias and I agree the Astros do have the edge. And it'll be interesting to see how it goes. And once again, I'm AJC, otherwise known as Adam Cohen. You can find me on Yankees from Israel on Instagram. You can find me at Yankees from Israel on YouTube. You can follow me at The Real AJC on Twitter. And if you have any baseball questions, you can email me at adam.cohen71422@gmail.com. And, my goal is to become a baseball broadcaster. So if you guys have any way of trying to help me with that, any connections, you know how to find me, you know what time I'm on air, 4 to 6 every Saturday, please let me know. So hope you guys have a fantastic day. And, let's go Yankees in the championship series against the Astros, which we'll see tonight. Have a good one, everyone.
Pretend I feel alright.